Oh, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Canada Live. We've got a great show in store for you today. We're going to talk about all the stuff that happened this past weekend at the Centennial College and Niagara District events. But before we do that, as Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging, of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations, who called Canada home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We're all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. All right, folks. Well, to get us started, I want to introduce our co-hosts for tonight's show. We have Naomi from Team 7712, Umoja from Scarborough, and Victoria from Team 9262 Humberside Huskies from Toronto, both of whom are from the First Canada Youth Council. How's it going, Victoria and Naomi?
Great. I'm excited.
How about you, Victoria?
Oh, good. I'm so hyped for today's show.
I know it was just like a really, really fun weekend of robots, and we're here for more. First off, how's your March break going?
It's good. For me, it started off with Centennial College, the competition. What a great way to start off.
What about you, Victoria?
Same for me as well. Just a really fun weekend of Centennial, and then now back in the shop, finishing up some build and adding minor adjustments.
So like March break comes and robots don't stop, right?
Yeah.
And Naomi, I know your team's competed at Centennial, but you're going to be competing at Durham this weekend. And Victoria, what about you? Are you at Durham as well, or are you at Humber?
I'm at Humber College.
Oh, very fun. That's going to be really exciting. All right, folks, we kind of teased it a little bit, but we are going to be talking about the Centennial College and Niagara College events. We're going to be showing a match from each and just kind of going through all the things that happened, all the stats and everything else in between. So, folks, if you are watching us live right now, you have any questions, please post them in chat and someone will try and answer them for you live on air. And just remember, folks, we're here to celebrate excellence in our community. So let's keep the chat positive. Let's keep the gracious professionals at the forefront of our minds. All right, folks. The first thing we want to do is it's time for the Youth Council Wellness Moment. So, Naomi, Victoria, what are you doing right now? What are your strategies to keep your mind and your body and everything doing well?
Okay, I can start. For me, I really like listening to music, particularly some good, relaxing R&B, Neo, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys, or some reggae, Chronix, Bob Marley. But just as much as I like listening to music, I also like actually like practicing my instruments. I play one of the oldest and newest, which is the harp and the steel pan, and it's really fun just whether practicing with my siblings, just playing by myself, worry free, letting the sound of music fill me, and it's really fun.
Wow, you play the harp?
Yes.
That's a wide range, the harp and the steel pan. That is pretty cool.
Thanks.
All right, Naomi, can you do both at the same time?
Wow. Never tried.
All right. That's the new skill for this summer, or maybe this March break even. Victoria, what about you?
Yeah, so kind of going off of the same, making music. Just one thing that I try and do every day even is just to do something creative in my day, something that I really enjoy, something that I look forward to, because I love STEM as much as I do love it. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of science, it's a lot of logic. But doing something creative helps me keep that creative energy, such as doing art, as I have a lot of stuff on my wall, which is a lot of stuff that I draw, or I have my guitar in the back. So just something creative every single day, just to let myself relax and have a bit of diversity in what I do.
That's very cool. I think it's really important to make sure you're doing different things. I just think you develop different skills, and as much as like it's cool to really focus and fixate on something, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. It's the same sort of thing, like, if you're just doing robots, it's like, yeah, like maybe like get outside, go for a run, play some frisbee, or just kind of, broaden so you're not. I don't know. I just think that your mind opens up so much more when you do different things and different ideas and everything like that. So I think that's really good advice from the both of you. All right, folks. Some general news items. We'll go through this stuff quick because we've mentioned it many, many times on the show. But, folks, if your team has if you're an FRC team, you have vouchers. All teams get all sorts of voucher codes to start the season. They will expire at the end of April, so make sure you're using them. If you opted out of the Kid Apart Drive base, you have a $450 Andy Mark voucher. If you opted out of the Black Toque, you have 125 Andy Mark voucher, 125 Rev voucher, and there's plenty of other vouchers that everyone just generally has. So make sure you're claiming those. We still have a couple scholarships that are open. The Skilled Trade Scholarship and the Indigenous Scholarship are available. So, folks, even if you aren't eligible for these scholarships, maybe you know someone else on your team who is. So spread the word. And so just apply, apply, apply. All the details are in chat right now. Also, in terms of our show, just a little schedule update. We will not be having a show next Tuesday, and the reason for that is because it's going to be right during the Humber College event, and so that would be a little bit weird. So we're going to be taking next week off, and we'll be back the following week, and we'll be recapping 4 events on the same show. So we'll be recapping Durham, Humber, North Bay, Waterloo all at once, which will be a fantastic show. And then after that, we'll be back the next week recapping McMaster and Windsor. And then after that, we'll recap the provincial championship. Then we'll take a few weeks off and we will be back and we will recap everything that happened at Worlds. So it's going to be a good time. And if also we are available as a podcast. So if you want to listen to us on Spotify, take a look at the link that is popping in the chat. And of course, folks, if you need support with your team trying to figure out, oh, how do I get my Coral intake working? Well, guess what? You can post on the Ontario Team Slack and there'll be lots of people to help you out there. So that's a link going in the chat on how to join. It's a great place to be. And then finally, we have a couple quizzes available. If you want to take the First Canada Bronze Safety Badge quiz, link is going in chat. And if you pass that test, bring proof of that, like a little screenshot or whatever, to the swag table at any First Canada event, and you'll get a bronze safety badge that you can have. That'll be pretty cool. And then finally, if you're still learning the game rules, you want to make sure that you are a pro at Reefscape, take a look at the Reefscape quiz that was designed by our very own Swaggy P, Paul P. Keenan, and you can take a look at that quiz, and it's a really good way to get familiar with all the rules. All right, folks, that is a quick wrap of everything that's going on in the world of First Canada, but we will be back with our Reefscape discussion starting in just a moment after a word from one of our sponsors, Honda. All right, thank you, Honda, for all your support of First Canada. And now, before we start doing our little bit of a recap here, we want to invite our very special guest to join us. She's a First Canada alum and mentor of Team 2056 OP Robotics and First Canada MC and game announcer, Emily Forster. How's it going, Emily?
Good. How are you, Karthik?
Oh, I am good, friend. I am good because we just had a great week of robots. And Emily, people say it often, but Ontario is maybe the best region in the world right now. We have a lot of top teams here in Ontario. So let's just dive into the stats, shall we? Let's take a look at our slides. And let me get my pen out here. And so, folks, this slide doesn't tell the whole story. This is just Ontario teams right now. And it is a familiar story. Team 2056 out on their own again. Best team in the world right now, according to EPA, by a full standard deviation. Next level stuff. Emily, you saw 2056 in person. What did you see?
I did. They're just such a fast moving robot. Coral, speedy. They can also do LG faster than any other team I've seen. It's just extremely impressive.
And it's like they have the Coral intake, the ground intake that is
Yes.
so effective. So they're able to shorten their cycles, was doing 4 pieces consistently in auto, came close to the 5th a couple times. I
So
feel like it's right
close.
there. I feel like
It's
it's
like
right there.
4.9, like so close.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we round down in the world of
I
first, but
know.
it's right there. It's just, and I think it's part of it is because there's more variability in 2056's auto because of where the coral lands, and I think
Mhm.
if you just get like 4 shots in a row, it can happen. But folks, this isn't the whole story. Like there's this other, so that Team Dave 3683 is also in their own territory right now, and uh we'll get to the world rankings in a bit. You'll see them in a second, but Dave was just fantastic. And then, so we talked about the Alpha Dogs last week, so I'm not going to touch on them just yet. But then 1114 and 2200 were this other zone. And it's just like there's so many top teams in Ontario. So let me just clear my screen here and let's jump to this next slide. Here are the world rankings 2056, first in the world. But it's not just 2056 right now. Team Dave, 4th. Alpha Dogs, 14th. 1114, 16th. 2200, 37th. We have 8 Ontario teams in the top 100, 4 in the top 16, and 2 in the top 4. This is unparalleled. All these teams would have been smoking any other events anywhere else. But Emily, what I find really interesting is of the teams on the top 12, who were all in the top 120, only 3 of them have a deep climb.
Yeah, exactly the point I was gonna say is there weren't that many deep climbs seen this weekend.
And I think this is a testament to Ontario teams being good at strategy. And I think it's understanding the game and understanding where the value was and really, really going hard into specializing on coral. And so even without those deep climbs, and I think the deep climbs are going to come for some of these teams. I think they will have them at some point. And like, no, the Alpha Dogs have a very successful one. 7558 has a very successful one. Makeshift has one. Did they stopped using it toward the playoffs? Emily, do you have any insight on that from being at the
They
event?
did. I don't know why, but I did notice during the matches it takes about 30 seconds for them to climb. So it may just
Hmm.
because it takes so much time to do it. So
Yeah,
during playoffs it doesn't match to their coral.
they'll have it ready at some point. But
Oh yeah.
it you know it's amazing that these teams are putting up numbers this big without that bonus to deep climb. But just the coral scoring was good. Like these
Uh,
robots are really really simple. Like look at Team Dave, look at Symbiotics, and look at BCR Blackout. Robots that are very similar, just like, yeah, human load, score coral, human load, score coral. Okay, do an algae. It's just like, but just they were all so fast. It was fantastic. And so now, Victoria and Naomi, you were both at Centennial. Tell us a little bit about this 7558 robot.
Yeah, one thing that I saw 7558 at Centennial, they were really, really fast with their like coral. Just putting the coral on the reef, like you look away for 1 second, you look back, half the reef is filled.
And also, why I also think they're so fast is because the actual intake time is really fast. Because what slows a lot of the teams down is not actually like they're driving, but intaking sometimes takes a lot of time. But for them, they're just like quick exchanges.
Yeah, and 7558, they were a little bit of a breath of fresh air because there's so many robots that look similar this year. But they really had that neat adjust. So they had a coral ground intake, and also they had the ability to adjust in like the left right direction as they're going and like up down. So they had multiple axes there. So it was interesting how they did things there, and I think it paid off for them. And we'll talk about that event specifically. But those are just some of the stats. So we can pull the slide down right now as we dive back in, and we're just talking about Reefscape in general. So I want to go around the room here and maybe start with Naomi. But Naomi, what impressed you the most this weekend?
I was gonna, well, like leading into what you're saying, I was gonna say like the cycle times and stuff, and like how fast the robots could be if their intake was really fast, and there was like some defense at times, which would make it like hard and slowing down. But like yeah, the fastest robots had really like smooth intake, just there and back and forth, like in the top alliances and stuff.
What about you, Victoria?
One thing that really impressed me was I saw how much the strategy changed, not even just over the weeks, because it's only a couple weeks of competitions, but throughout the whole competition, I feel like strategy was not the same for the first qualification match than it was for playoffs. You could
And
see how teams adapted.
and what were some of those adaptations that you saw?
I saw that a lot less teams were going for endgame, going for climbs especially in playoffs, as they could do so much more point scoring with Coral. Or, for example, one thing that surprised me is that there's not as much human player at the barge. Like, they rarely ever got Algae to score into the barge.
Okay, and Emily, what about you?
I think just seeing like the high scores that were coming up from just a week 2 events was just so impressive to me because I knew that there would be high scores, obviously. It was an event with big teams like 2056, but having so many of them during qualifications was just so amazing to see.
I think what impressed me the most was that we saw twice alliances score 180 points and lose.
Yeah, that too.
That one just kind of broke my brain and ripped to 11-14 because they were on both of them. And now 11-14 has the claim to fame. They have three of the highest losing scores in the top 10 this season or whatever. But like it's just like what do you do at that point? You score 185 points, and I think you just kind of throw your hands up and just be like, yeah, we got beat by a better alliance. Like it's just it was it was cool. We had a 400-point match, 215 to 185, Emily. I think that
Oh,
was the score. And it was just like, yeah,
yes,
no,
I
no,
think
not
so.
400 by one alliance. We're not
That's
there
what
yet. We're
I
not
was
there
like,
yet.
what?
At and but also there's a question comment in chat from It's Crazy Fish 784. It said Niagara had a 215-point clean match, and there were no endgame points in that match. Like,
Yeah, that is completely correct.
okay, so we talked about what impressed us the most. What surprised you? What caught you off guard?
I think
Oh,
oh, sorry, you can go
I thought we were
first.
going the same order. My bad. Sorry. For me, I would say like lack of core partition used or like Algae through it and using of the processor. I thought Algae was gonna have like a much bigger role, but sometimes like some of the games would be like so much different Algae just like rolling around the field. And yeah, and also sometimes Coral would get stuck on the robots, which would like really hinder their performance. But then instead they turn it and like start defensing. And yeah.
Yeah, so Naomi, I think it's really interesting. I definitely the lack of co-op this year has kind of surprised me. We saw a little bit more of it at Niagara, and I think partially because there was a lot of robots in Niagara that could do about 15 coral in a match, 15, 16, which is a huge amount, but still not enough to get that RP. So it was very valuable to knock that down from 20 to 15, that threshold. So I think that was a part of it. Emily, we saw a lot more algae scored in Niagara, and towards the end, like in the playoffs, we started seeing the first thing alliances were doing was trying to get all 9 algae scored.
Yeah, and
And
I think like definitely the thing that surprised me was that algae was being scored so much, and there were so many strategies around mainly scoring algae. I know there's a team 7476. They had a very unique perspective, OEM Robotics, where they only did algae, but they did it really well because they could essentially just shot the
yeah,
algae into the net, and they were just consistently doing that.
yeah, I really liked that towards the end we were seeing, the top alliances putting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 algae in the net while doing their
Yeah,
40-ish coral cycles, like 35, 30 to 40 coral cycles. So
and I think that mainly is because in those like bigger teams, their coral, you can only score so much coral, but the algae is the variable. How much algae
yeah.
you can do could change the match.
If you know you're going to fill levels 4 and 3 of the reef, you
Mm,
better start scoring some algae because the algae is then more valuable than every single level 2 or level 1 piece of
100%, yeah.
coral. So you got to go right there. Victoria, anything surprise you this weekend?
One thing that surprised me was how close some of the matches were. Like, I think at Centennial, one of the matches that my team played was 68 to 68. And the only thing taking that apart was a major foul. And that just caught me so off guard. I think there was like 1 or 2 point matches, how close some of these alliances
E-
were.
Every piece of coral or every like if can you park or not park? And then obviously when it gets that close, the fouls come into play. And so it's like, can you manage to play clean? All right, so we're at week 2, and most teams, not all, but most teams have played once already right now. And pretty much everyone will have played once after, not everyone, still a good chunk after this weekend at Durham. How do we think this game is going to change over the next few weeks?
Um, I think there's gonna be a lot more hanging because so far there's not like too much still working on accuracy, but I'm thinking maybe by provincial time at least, maybe we'll see 3-on, but like I feel like that's a lot. But I don't know, just more hanging. And also since the high score is up to like 221, um, with the coral fill and stuff, yeah, there's gonna be a lot more algae. I'm hoping to see more algae like have a more beneficial role in this
I
game.
uh I agree with you a lot, Naomi. I think there's going to be a lot of teams who are making some changes to their robots to either add algae functionality or to add a climb. I just think it's
Yeah.
coming. What about you, Victoria?
I think one thing that we might see a lot more of, especially as the weeks progress, because people get more time to work on their robot. One thing as my team, we played a lot more defense, but one thing that really stands out against defense is ground intake. So I think getting the ground intake for Coral and just anything else is really beneficial for a team. It can really get you that higher up. So I'm really hoping to see a lot more of that on robots, even if it makes defense quite complicated.
I'm torn on that one, Victoria, because I just think grounded take is one of those things that when it works, like so we were at Centennial, we saw how cool 8884s looked. And Emily, I don't know if you've seen 8884 yet, but they have this ridiculous ground intake. It just comes down and then the coral just like sucks up right in there. It is like not 2056 level, but it is like way, way up there. Like it is it's like a top 100,
Mhm.
top 50 ground intake in the world right now. It is fantastic. But like I think it's hard. And I just think that these
I
teams who worked on it for like, 8, 10 weeks right now have a leg up. And I think that adding one might be hard. So I'm a little bit nervous for teams who are trying. But Emily, you want to jump in? So go for it.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say if your team can do one from Human Player Station really well right now, continue with that because there could be a lot more complicated that can go wrong with it with a ground intake. If you see 2056's robot, it's not just a simple intake. There's like it's an intake and then it has to recenter the coral inside. There's a lot more to it. And although the ground intake's amazing when it works, there are definitely some ground intakes out there that are not as don't work as well. So if you can do one consistently from the Human Player Station, that would be your best bet.
Yeah, I can see the
Mm,
lure, and I think I can see
absolutely.
why. But like sometimes teams pull off amazing rebuilds. I just want everyone who's trying this to understand the difficulties in it, But
Mhm.
hey, sometimes aim for the stars, and like you'll still be a moon or something like that, whatever that phrase goes or whatever. You could try it. It'd be interesting. I just want to hit on some of the comments from our chat, which is a little bit busier than normal. We see that someone said one thing that surprised them was the number of robots getting caught on algae. Hey, folks, algae is dangerous. They are landmines. We saw 1114 get caught. We saw 1241 get caught. I think we saw Makeshift get caught. I think pretty much
Yeah.
everyone got caught at some point. It is really, really tough. It is sticky. It sticks to bumpers. I say keep your bumpers as low as you can and proceed with caution around the algae. And like maybe the best thing is like put it in the barge. Like when you don't just knock it off the reef, put it in the barge, put it in the barge or the net, or I always forget if it's the net or the barge, but you know what I'm talking about. Another comment was finals at Centennial were awesome. Oh, were they awesome? Yes. Uh, and then 2056's ability to possess both algae and coral at the same time streamlines their cycles so much as they can score algae in the barge and immediately be able to score coral right after. I think it's kind of neat how they will kind of like suck up the coral and like kind of leave it waiting there and then, do the thing and then go back. I think it's smooth. I mean, you don't get to average 26 and a half game pieces a match without doing something right. A ridiculous number, 26 and a half. It is
Yeah.
wild. Like other like teams out there are like thrilled with averaging 13. You're one of the top teams of the world. And 2056 was doubling that number. And before anyone starts, I know we talk a lot about 2056 on this show. I get it. But they're really, really good. Like how are we not supposed to talk about the best top team in the world? But we're gonna back up then. Let's talk about Team Dave for a second here. Team Dave, 4-piece auto without a ground intake. Just back and forth. They were so smooth. Emily, why was Team Dave so good?
They were just so consistent and they were just oh, sorry. They were just so consistent. They were fast. They had a routine. Um, their just strategy just worked so well for them. They were able to do Coral and LG so well. It,
Yeah.
they were just they're one of the top teams in the world right now, and I'm not surprised.
It was just like a level above because like just like look at it
Mhm.
like teams like 11-14, 2200, and 40-39.
Mhm.
But Dave was a tier above them. It's not
Yeah.
like it was they were just considerably like, like 3-4 cycles ahead of them in a match. Like if you just watch from the naked eye, you might not realize it. If you watch an 11-14 match and a 2200 match and a Dave match, you might think they're all the same. But if you take a stopwatch, there's an actual difference.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. This is a big statement, but this is the best robots that Team Dave's ever built. And this is a team who's been very, very good, been to Einstein before. But it was just like, I mean, I was a huge fan of their 2019 robot. Played with 2056 at provincials that year, but this is just amazing. Comment in chat. I love how simple Dave is. It's incredibly effective, well tuned, and insanely well driven. It's elevator with a fixed coral intake and a pivot down algae intake. Yeah, it's great. Someone asked for a link to a match with Team Dave. Someone could drop that in chat, but we're going to be showing a match with Team Dave in a few minutes. So before we wrap and head on to our Centennial segment, each of you was at an event this week, and I want you to tell me a moment of gracious professionalism you saw.
I can. Oh,
Yeah, go
okay.
for it. No, you go for it, Naomi.
All right. So, so when I was in the stand scouting, there's this certain individual in team 1310, and he was just throughout all, even when his team wasn't on, he was just like cheering for all like his positive energy. Like you can tell he was really embodying gracious professionalism. I even gave him like the youth council gracious professionalism pin, and it was a coincidence too because afterwards 1310 got the gracious professionalism award. So I'm like, okay, I give this to the right
Oh,
guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Naomi, the judges were just like, yo, Naomi gave the GP pin. We got to go that way. All
Yeah.
right. Victoria, did you give your GP pin out?
Yes, I did give my GP pin out.
Okay.
One moment that I really saw gracious professionalism. So our team, Humberside, has kind of a school that is also called HCI that we usually get confused with, Harvard, and their team 919 just recently came back from a super long hiatus. And the driver and build lead on my team was super gracious, and half the time he'd be in their pits helping them out with anything that they needed. And I thought that that really embodied kind of the true spirit of FIRST. And it really showed that in our first year, we had people coming and doing that for us. And that's part of the reason why our team is still alive. And just being able to do that for somebody else just really shows that when you receive good, you always pass it on to somebody else.
That is fantastic. We'd like to hear. Emily, did you give a pin out this weekend?
I didn't get a pin.
What do you mean you
They
didn't
on-
get a pin?
they
You're supposed to.
they only had two for the MCNGAs, and I was the
Oh,
third one.
so you're gonna get yours at McMaster. You're gonna get
I'll
yours at
get mine at
McMaster.
McMaster.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, okay. That makes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes more sense. That makes more sense.
Yeah, no,
Whatever.
don't worry. I know it. I saw them. They look amazing. Like there are some awesome gracious professionalism pins.
Do you know who designed them, Emily?
Can I make a guess? I think
You
I
can make a
know.
guess.
Aiden?
Aiden Monder, Aiden
Yeah.
Monder, who was one of the game announcers at Centennial, designed the pin. It was a great thing.
Yeah.
But Emily, a moment of gracious professionalism that you saw.
Yeah, so in during playoffs on Sunday, there was a very tense moment where for for the One Alliance, it was 40-39 and 12-41. And 12-41 had some issues, I'm not sure what, but they weren't able to make it to the field. And there was one match where they were racing from the pits to get back to the field, and everyone saw 40-39 being the only robot on that field. The minute that 12-41 came around that corner, the entire crowd, every team was cheering because like they finally made it. They were duct taping stuff on the side of the field. Just seeing the entire crowd cheering for a team, even when it's not your team, even when you're against that team, is just such an amazing thing to see. And it was just a very like awesome crowd.
Yeah. I think the one that I saw was there were so many teams who had stepped up to have volunteers at the Centennial event, and our field reset crew was a combination of students from 1310 and 9062 and 7558, and we had an official scorer from 4069, and they all kind of stepped up and just were having like a great time, and I always respect when someone is willing to pull themselves away from the team to help volunteer and to really kind of put things together, like much like you do yourself, Emily, and it's just it was great to see. And it was just that the energy from the people around the field, these volunteers, and especially these field rangers, because field reset can be a slog sometimes. It's a lot of whatever. Or there was these two volunteers on the setup day, and it was their job to deburr all the coral. And like, there's a lot of coral, and just like, and it was just, but they did it with a smile on their face, and just so appreciative of the amazing volunteers that we have in this program that make things happen for everyone. All right, folks, we're going to come back with our Centennial College recap. But before we do that, let's take a look at a word from one of our sponsors, Enbridge Gas.
Manufacturing is the cornerstone of our economy. However, it is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. There are a multitude of solutions, including energy efficiency, low carbon technologies such as renewable natural gas, geothermal, and hydrogen, and they all play a part in the transition towards a clean energy future.
A specific example of how Enbridge is leading the energy transition is leveraging our storage assets where we've been safely storing natural gas for 75 years, and to now look at those same assets to store new things such as hydrogen.
There are areas that you just can't electrify efficiently. So for instance, the making of steel, where they use gas or coal as part of the process itself. You have to use something that's to replace those elements, and hydrogen fits the bill.
It's just beginning. We're starting to scale up pilot projects and demonstration projects to utility scale size and implement real change.
All right, we're back, folks. All right, now we're talking Centennial College. So we're going to dive into these Centennial College stats right now. All right, and so as we can see here, this one tells the story. So we had an amazing, so 75-58, and y-axis is auto and endgame, while x-axis is teleop. So you can see the power of their climb gets them up this high. And they were the number 1 seed, and then they picked Team 188, which left 610 to pick 781. And you realize we got really balanced alliances here because of the way this picking went. And that really showed in the playoffs. But I got to give a shout out to Team 8884, the Night Owls from Northern Collegiate. Their robot was so cool. So coral ground intake, reorients the coral, pulls it up into the arm, also with a center mounted deep cage climb. It was so cool. I talked to some of the students on the team, and they said, yeah, we were all grade 12, so we just wanted to go big this year before we graduated. And I was like, for like a third year team, even third or fourth year team to really leap to this level. Now, it wasn't as consistent. I'm so sure they would have liked it to be, but I know they're going to improve. And I can't wait to see what this robot is like at provincials. And I'm just like, I would love to see this robot get to Worlds because it is so cool. But yeah, that's what we have there. And if we take a look at our next slide, here's our alliances. And you can see what I mean by balanced. Like if you look at the total EPA of Alliance 1 and Alliance 2, 109 to 103. Now, let me just remind you, 2056's EPA on their own is 90, which is just like, again, like a different planet. But the gap was really in the second pick. So it was a gap of 5 right there between Arctos and 771. But since both these teams were playing defense, it kind of cancels out. And so you have this like 2 as evenly matched as you can get alliances right there. So we're not going to show a finals match because I couldn't get the right camera angle that we needed from the finals matches or whatever and everything. So they're not final 1 and final 3 aren't on YouTube yet, but we're going to show match 11, which is often a preview of the finals, which is still Alliance 1 versus Alliance 2. So on red is Alliance number 1, team 75-58, 188, and 1635. And in blue, it's team 610, 781, and 771. So it was kind of neat because we had a lot of our low number teams there, and we can just dive into the matches. And feel free to comment on anything that you're seeing right now. But like, it's just, Victoria, you talked about close matches. This match was like a mirror. Like the same things were happening on both sides of the field, right? And so we go in auto. Red takes a little bit of a lead, but watch the Blue Alliance come back here. And then also keep an eye on 771 as they were playing some fantastic defense. Like started calling them the hardcore champions because they were just slamming into everything. A question in chat, will those matches end up on YouTube eventually? I think so. I think there might have been some music copyright issues that were keeping them off of YouTube.
Yeah, these matches are neck and neck.
Yeah, and you can see the 610 machine just so we're playing this without audio, but if we had the audio on, you'd hear the 610 machine because their elevator was so loud. Bang, 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 bang. But really, really good. It's just like these are just 4 well-balanced teams here in terms of the offensive robots. 781, another simple and effective robot. As Naomi said, nothing's happening with algae right now. You see the algae scores are 0. The coral scores we see are like pretty much close. Oh, we got one algae put in somewhere, so that's good. That's good to see. But Blue, despite being behind after auto, comes back a little bit here. And so now we're seeing a little bit of algae going on, and just the reef is filling up. And when I watch this match, all I can think of is how excited I am for provincials, because we're going to see this level of quality from all 8 alliances at provincials in terms of the ability to fill the rack. And so, folks, if the rack is filling by Alliance 8 at provincials, what does that mean?
It means we're gonna have to start scoring some algae.
There you go, Emily. There you go. Algae is going to become really important. And so,
Yeah.
this is just honestly, I had to refresh in my brain who won this match because it was so close.
Now, one thing that's really interesting is you can see even with 22 seconds left in the match, there's still robots scoring coral.
Oh yeah, multiples. They just keep going. Now I think 7558's coming in for a climb here. And as we see the last coral score, and 7558 just isn't able to get their climb. And that means the Blue Alliance is able to take this one. 146 to 137. So Alliance 2 won this match, sending it, and they moved on in the upper bracket. Alliance 1 then came back, and to face Alliance 2 in the finals, and it went 3, and they won 2 of the 3. But actually, Alliance 2 beat Alliance 1 twice, and Alliance 1 beat Alliance 2 twice. It's just that Alliance 1's wins were in the finals, where it matters a little bit more. And one of the weird quirks of it not being a true double elimination like FTC, where you can you get that kind of repechage. So Alliance 2 would have had to beat them 3 times to actually win the tournament, which is same sort of thing that happened on the Galileo field in 2023 when Citrus and Code Orange lost to 1114 and 3005 twice, but it wasn't the right matches, and Citrus's streak still continued. So it was really interesting. But this was just great job by both those alliances. Naomi and Victoria, what did you see from those alliances in person?
For some of the robots, like on the video we just saw right now, like some of the transitions were like really smooth. Like one of the robot, I don't remember the number, but like just as the robot took off the algae, like it was able to hold it and like right after do the coral on the red team. And also even for on the Blue Alliance, it was interesting how often through the matches I'd see like one robot designated, for example, to the level 4, and then the other would do level 3, like to start off. But then on the 2 of the blue robots started going for level 4, and then after one like halfway switch. So I can imagine a lot of communication going on through that match between alliances.
That's a great point, Naomi, because the other piece of communication that was going on really well is because especially 771 was playing some really effective defense there. 7558 and 188 were like switching loading stations often. And to do that cohesively and have human players able to load the other human player's robot. And then at times when 610 and 781 were defended, I saw 781's human player loading both robots at the same time. Like left hand was loading 610 and right hand was loading 781, which was really, really cool to see. So that was neat. Some questions in chat. How much do you think defense will play a role going forward? It seems like ground intake somewhat invalidates it, as well as the need to go for algae instead of only corals. There's not enough ground intakes to eliminate defense, and so I think, look, if people are maxing with two robots, like maxing the reef or whatever, that everyone's setting a defender in the playoffs. That's just the way it's gonna be. Three offense is probably not gonna be a thing, or maybe it is, but I just don't think it'll be effective. But effective swerve defense can really slow stuff down. When we take a look, I don't think we're going to see them in the match that we're looking at for Niagara. But Emily, did you catch any of the defense from 57-19, the Pink Titans?
I did. It was some good defense.
They were really
Yeah.
slowing teams down. And so I think as you get to provincials and worlds, where I think you're going to start seeing like top teams playing defense. And we saw it in one match at Newmarket. Revolt Robotics was playing defense, and I was like, "Oh, that's scary." When you get a well practiced driver playing D, look out. And we've seen it a couple times. Like there was a match with the Waffles. Something was wrong with the robot, so they switched to play defense. It's like, oh boy, now you got an Einstein team that's playing defense. Look out. So I think defense is definitely going to be a big thing. Will it be as effective on teams with ground intakes? No. It's but it still can slow them down. It can still slow them down. You just drive through the intake is basically the way it is. You see the coral that they're going for, and you hit it, and you just kind of kick around. It's not going to be as effective. Like teams like 88-84 and 75-58 and 20-56 will have a leg up against defense because they have a ground pickup. That's the trade-off they make by doing something as difficult as that. But yeah, Bocek in chat just mentioning 1241 often played defense. Another team you don't want to see playing defense. They drive so well. They were just fantastic on all counts, and we'll jump ahead to that. But there's defense will be effective. I actually think that normally the scores kind of skyrocket, throughout the season. I don't know that they're going to get that much higher than what we saw Dave in 2056 putting up. I don't know that there's much room to go up because I just think that there's going to be more defense, so I think it's going to kind of plateau. And like, because Dave in 2056 filled up levels 2, 3, and 4, so they're only adding in level 1. They got 9 algae, which is pretty much the most you can get unless you're stealing algae. So where can scores go up? Well, if either of those teams add a deep climb is number 1. Number 2, if they have a third robot who can steal algae from the other side of the field. But I think defense is going to come up. That's the ticket, folks. Here, I'll give you a free tip right now. You want to be a third robot at Worlds, you've got to be able to play defense and have a ground algae intake and go to the other side of the field and steal algae. Because it might really come down to which alliance gets 10 algae in the barge and which gets 8. So, free tip right there for everyone. Algae plus defense plus deep climb. Oh, baby, that's second round pick territory if you're looking for how to do it. Emily, you're laughing.
I was just thinking, and that's tips with Karthik.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, folks, we want to recognize the winners of this event. So congratulations, Team 75-58 Alt F4 on winning back-to-back Centennial titles. Team 188 Blizzard winning their first event since 2000. It was a well-deserved comeback for them. Pandemic hit, and I think they were out for the 22 season, I believe, and then or they were in for 22, but it was a little bit rocky. But 188 looked like old 188. They were cooking. It was really, really cool to see. And they had so many alumni back as mentors and everything. And like full disclosure, I'm an alumni of 188 from Team 1998, but it was like more like the era of like 2016 to 2020 alumni. And it's really kind of cool to see them running the team. And Team 6135 Arctos, who had a very rough first day, but then came back and won the event, which was super, super cool to see. Finalists, Team 610, Crescent Coyotes from Toronto, 781 Connecticut Knights from Kincardine, and 771 SWAT from Oakville. SWAT defense is back. Emily, you'll remember SWAT defense from 2019.
Oh, I remember SWAT defense.
Oh, you were still in high school then. Oh my goodness.
I was.
You were
on the side of the field during provincials.
You were on the other end of the SWAT defense. But like they won Humber because of their defense. They won provincials because of their defense that year. And then they were picked by the #1 alliance at Worlds because of their defense. And then, so SWAT defense back. That was cool to see. Our Dean's List semifinalists from the event are advancing to provincials. Shalini N from Team 6135 Arctos and Tiana W from 9659 Vanier. And then Engineering Inspiration to Lowell and Robotics 4069. You saw them on this show a couple weeks ago because they won the Inspire Award at FTC Provincials, and now they won Engineering Inspiration in FRC, which is really cool to see. And the Impact Award to Team 771 SWAT. That Impact video was pretty cool. SWAT is doing cool things, so that was very cool to see. All right, folks. Anything else that we want to say on Centennial, especially Naomi and Victoria? Nope, we're good. Awesome. All right. Well, then we're going to be back in just a few seconds to talk about Niagara. All right, we are back. And so now let's take a look at the stats from the Niagara event. Okay. All right, everyone. I'm going to do this in reverse order. Okay. 4039 and 1241. They were the finalists at this event. Great alliance. They ran into some mechanical difficulties. Emily talked about when 1241 had to miss a match. They missed a match and they still won that match, right?
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive because like
Yeah.
two versus three robots, it's a very nerve-wracking thing to see.
Yeah. And so they cooked, but there's a big gap here. And they were like, I think if I take that 4039 and 1241 and a 2852 alliance to 90% of events this season, they'll win comfortably. And then we see 1114 and 2200. And they played against 2056 and 3683 in match 11. We're going to look at that match because it was so high scoring, and scored 180 or 185 points in that match and lost. 2056 and Team Dave were in their own stratosphere, specifically 2056 into their own category. This is wild, wild, wild numbers right here. It's just amazing to see. My question is, does this gap shrink over the season? So last year, 2056 had a very big gap, but it did shrink a little bit. And same thing in 23. Emily, thoughts? Does the gap shrink this year?
I think it will shrink a bit. I don't know how much that will be because 1114, I believe 1114, 1241, their next events are both McMaster. Same with
Yep.
2200, I believe.
So they'll all be there with 2056.
And
2056 is McMaster.
that means they all have 3 weeks to practice and practice their driving and improve in some way. And 3 weeks can be a lot of time to change something. So it's very
but 2056 also has 3 weeks.
that is also very true.
You know, so it's.
But the question is there a limit to what it like? Is there
There it is.
Is there
There it is. Like, how many more cycles can they do?
exactly?
You know, like it's almost like 2050 and 2056. They're one of the best teams in the world consistently, but there's no team that starts faster than 2056. This is a team that always comes out ready to go. And it is so, so impressive. One of the things I admire so much about them. But I think Team Dave is going to be right there. I think, and the Alpha Dogs, who not on this slide, started really, really fast too, and they've got a bunch of weeks to go as well. I don't know. I'm just wake me up, and I want it to be provincials tomorrow. I want to be there for the excitement, just to
We'll have
witness
this
all of
same
this.
discussion in 3 weeks after McMaster,
Yes.
right before provincials.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. All right, let's take a look at our next slide. And we can see the EPAs here. So the gap between first and second is 42. We're talking number 16 and number 37 in the world. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It is so you can see there was definitely some tiering here. So I think we've said enough about this data, but just how great these teams are. So let's take let's drop this slide here. And so normally we try and show a finals match here, but the match we're going to show is the second highest scoring match in the world this year. The highest scoring match was a qualification match that 2056 played off against 11-14, but we don't want to show a quals match. We want to show a finals match. And so it's going to be on red 2056, 3683, and 7623. And in blue, 2200, 1114, and 7757. You know, folks, sorry, it's funny that people need to come into chat to brag about their teams. But yes, OP is 5 cycles ahead of Dave right now. And it is, like that's Team Dave's stats right there. So that kind of tells you right about it. But when we watch this match, because earlier someone was asking questions about Team Dave, watch Team Dave, because I think it's just so interesting to see how efficient they are. Like, I don't know, there's 4 of us right now. Maybe we should all pick a robot and watch because of the offensive robots. So I'm calling Team Dave. Emily, who do you want to watch?
I'll call 11-14.
Okay, Emily's going to watch 11-14. Victoria?
I'll choose 2200.
2200. So Naomi, you get 2056. So hope your eyes are good because they move real quick. All right, so let's take a look right now. And as you see your team do something interesting, shout it out. Team Dave, they don't even have to wait for the coral when it's loaded in auto. It's just they drive away right away.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that is wild.
Yeah.
They're not waiting for it to settle. And so that's why you can see with 11-14 only gets to 3, but Team Dave can get to 4. So pause right now, if we can pause right now.
I almost
Thanks,
forgot
Heather.
we were still in auto because it's how fast 2056 was. I almost forgot we were in auto. Like,
They
wait.
put up, the Red Alliance put up 8 coral in auto. That is the highest in the world this year. But they did it 5 times. So they have the top 5 auto scores in the world this year. The 2056, 3683, 7623 Alliance. That is wild. But like level 1 is almost done. So now as we jump in here, let's just watch all the algae scoring.
Right away, 11-14 scoring algae.
Yeah, 2056 scoring algae, Dave scoring algae. So see, Naomi, this is different than what you saw at Newmarket, right? I'm not
Yeah,
Newmarket, Centennial.
Centennial, yeah.
Algae matters, so they're going right at it.
If you notice there, the Blue Alliance accidentally gave the Red Alliance an algae on their side. So that
Yeah,
Ooh.
11-14 dropped one there, but like this, look how smooth these robots are. And
That's
so
a
the
lot of algae being used, and they're not like
Yeah.
rolling around. They're
Yeah.
actually being put in the barge, not just rolling around the field.
We can see a huge difference from Centennial. Centennial is all about coral, and now we're already a minute in, and a
Wow.
lot more algae being scored.
And so you can see, like, you look at, it's like there's not a lot of coral scored right now, but there's a lot of time left. And once these robots start on coral, they fly.
Wow.
I'm just watching Team Dave here, but like they are fast.
We can see that like human players are also extremely efficient in the way that they're putting coral
Yeah.
in. I think one thing that I saw at Centennial is 188's human player. Fantastic. Like just putting in coral. Like
And so I got distracted for a second. I started watching 2200 because they're dealing with the defense so well of 7623, just getting around it. I mean, this match felt like an Einstein match.
I
But
think
look at the
there's
score
a lot of
difference. The
confidence.
Red Alliance is hammering them, despite how good 11-14 and 2200 looked. And this is what happened in the finals too, with 12-41 and 40-39. That Dave OP combo, like that looks like a world's winning alliance right now. Like maybe if they had some algae scoring from their 3rd robot. This is like the reefs. Red reef is full.
Yeah.
Blue
We can
reef
also
is
just
short a
see-
few pieces, and then let's go score some more algae. Why not?
Yeah, we can also just
no
see
climbing.
Sorry,
Oh,
Victoria.
you can see the full field view. There's almost no algae and no coral left over.
And Naomi, you brought up the good point. No climbing, all coral, all algae. But look at those numbers right there. 125 to 180. This is something else. 11-14 lost 4 times to 2056 on the weekend. each time scoring at least 150 points. You know, like what do you do there? Like 2,200, just I I don't know. That was cool to see. 395 points total. And that wasn't even there was a qual match with 400.
Yeah.
It's this Niagara stuff is wild. I like all four of those robots. And hey, let me not undersell the defense robots there. 75-57 and 76-23. If you didn't have that defense there, those scores would have been even higher,
Mhm.
folks. So this wasn't like three, like, you know, like an old like 2015 style 3-on-0 sort of thing. No. There was defense being played and it was actually kind of effective. It's just that 2200 was able to get around it, and it's so hard to defend OP. And yeah, we can take the video down as we continue to talk about this, but I was it was just so much fun to watch. And between watching that and then the finals at Centennial, which were super, super intense, that wasn't even a final. That was the 1 versus 2 matchup. The final ended up being a little bit lopsided because I think 1241 and 4039, they might not have been fully back on their game, especially after 1241 had that damage and everything in there or whatever. But I don't know. Like, picture those 4 alliances in a couple weeks at provincials, but then add in the Alpha Dogs and the Chargers and the Waffles. Hey, folks, we haven't seen 5406 play yet. We haven't seen 4907 play yet. We will at Durham, but there's some big, big teams in there. There is a lot going on. And we didn't even talk about a team like 1360, who was fantastic. And we haven't talked about our rookie also. Oh, yeah. Great point from Corralgus Deep. Don't forget 4678. They don't play until Waterloo, but they're defending provincial champions. And by the way, if there's a game that screams out like it's designed for 4678, it's this game. Like, it's, you know, they're going to have some multi-jointed arm that twists the coral and goes behind the back and over the top and everything like that. Like, I'm just like, I'm picturing like a ground intake and pivot and just one of those things. It's going to be super, super cool. Let's talk about the winners of this event. Congratulations, Team 2056 OP Robotics, 3683 Team Dave, 7623 Morbotics out of Hamilton. Finalists, 4039 Makeshift Robotics, 1241 Theory 6, 2852 DM High Voltage. That alliance had a match where both 1241 and 4039 were inoperable because one got caught on algae and one got caught on the reef. And then another match where 1241 missed the match, like we talked about, and they still got all the way to the finals. Talk about great strategy, great planning. They also were the first alliance I've seen this year where all 3 robots scored. Playoff alliance where all 3 robots scored coral on the reef in auto. So because 2852 had a little bit of a delay and put one in there, and so that was getting them up to 7, you know, with 3+3+1. So that was just really, really cool. I want to also talk about the Rookie All-Star Award winner, team 10554 Viper. Emily, tell me about this rookie team that you
They
saw.
were amazing. Like, they did not come off as did not seem like a rookie team. They were absolutely amazing. I think I can't remember what alliance captain they were, but they end up being an alliance captain, which is amazing.
Alliance 4, I think.
I believe, which is crazy for a rookie team.
Yeah,
it's
it was
so
at
impressive.
that event at
Yeah.
Niagara, which was the stacked event. They were just shout out to them. The story that I've heard is they've got some members on their team who were former FTC students, so I think they brought that knowledge in of first and really played off there. Dean's List at this event, ENT from team 1114 and Umiza A from 7476. By the way, Emily, you talked about the 7476 robot. So like my favorite robot, like in terms of coolness at Centennial, was 8884. But for Niagara, 7476.
Yeah.
Naomi Victoria, get this. They had a shooting robot. It shot the algae into the net.
Wow.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was so cool. It was such a different strategy than everyone else took. So it was a very unique robot to have.
Yeah, they were really, really cool.
Wow.
I want to give special shout outs to the first, the Engineering Inspiration Award winner, Team 5024, Radar Robotics from London, from Beale Secondary in London. Emily, are your ears recovered from hearing 5024's cheer?
Not yet.
I wasn't even there, and I just know because wherever
Yeah.
5024 goes, they make some noise. Speaking of noise, Centennial felt like the loudest event ever, right, folks?
There were a lot of teams cheering, especially because
Oh,
I think a lot of teams were cheering for other teams as well, which I really enjoyed.
I think also because the venue is small, and so there's so many people in a tight place. Like my ears were ringing the next day. I was like, oh my goodness. Between 1310, Naomi, Umoja, you all make a lot of noise.
The amount of people who had sore throats after the competition.
You could chalk Emily and I up to people who also had sore throats after the event. I think we're both feeling it with our
Yeah.
voices right now. You can both kind of hear the tickle. And then the Impact Award winner, Team 4039 Makeshift Robotics. Uh, I talked to some people at the event, and they said it was weird because there was like basically a rainbow in every pit because Makeshift was helping every team, and they were just everywhere. Emily, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I noticed that because I go around the night before to like talk to all the teams, and I swear Makeshift at least like was everywhere and helping out all these teams, and it was so nice to see.
I The rate of teams getting the auto RP was considerably higher at Niagara than most events, and I think a lot of that has to do with the impact of Makeshift and 1114 going around and just getting auto modes for everyone, which I think was super super cool. But Makeshift, um, they are a role model team in my mind. You just see it in the graciousness of their students, their mentors, the attitude they bring, the positivity, the helpfulness, and they won a well-deserved First Impact Award. First Impact Award, which will earn them a shot to compete for the Impact Award at the provincial championship once again. And so, congratulations to Makeshift for being awesome. It's just kind of a cool part of our community. All right, folks, that is pretty much a wrap. But final thoughts on Reefscape, on this week, on anything. Let's go around the room, starting with Emily.
Oh, it was Niagara was just such a great event, and I'm so excited to see how these robots are going to change, how the game is going to change in the next few weeks. Because it's only week 2. Like we have still got like 4
Yeah.
more weeks to go.
Victoria.
I think seeing this game in action is just so exciting. It's so thrilling, especially with how much teams can do. You don't expect it coming in. And I'm so excited to just see even more strategy, even more like robot auditions being added to many different robots in many, many different competitions.
And Naomi.
It's been a great start. I'm really excited for Jerome coming up. I just love seeing the different like designs. The fact that you said there was a shooting robot, that like I'm still thinking about that right now. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm just really excited. Hopeful for Jerome. Yeah.
I think back to last year with Crescendo and how that game changed multiple times. So at first it started, it was a cycling game, and then it became by worlds a passing game, and like the double passing started, and the game went through a lot of different evolutions. I'm curious where Reefscape goes. Does Reefscape behave more like a traditional game where the strategy doesn't change, or is FRC so advanced now that the strategies are going to change every year as they go on throughout the season, as teams evolve? And I'm also curious because Ontario is different than the rest of the world right now. And like, yes, these robots are great, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back here, but strategically, there are way less climbs happening in Ontario, and there's way less algae being scored in Ontario because of the focus has been on coral. Does that change? And our teams over the next while, in Ontario, for folks who are watching from elsewhere, high schools are off this week. And for many teams, it's a chance to work on robots even more. And so we often see big changes to robots in Ontario after this, especially since we got rid of the bag post-pandemic. So I'm curious as to what this is going to look like in Waterloo and McMaster and North Bay and Windsor in a few weeks, what teams are going to look like. And so I'm curious how the robots change and how the game changes. So I'm excited because I think this is just chapter 1, folks. You know, I think weeks 1 and 2 we can put it into chapter 1, and I think we got like a little in between chapter 2 that's going to be Humber and Durham, which some teams playing for a second time, but a lot of teams still playing for the first time. But then when we get into the last 4 events, that's going to be our next chapter, chapter 3, and then chapter 4 will be provincials. And so I'm excited. I honestly don't know what to expect other than really good stuff. So I'm excited. Naomi, Victoria, thank you for being here. Thanks for repping the Youth Council and being awesome. Emily, thank you so much. We're seeing you back here in a couple weeks. You're going to be doing the McMaster recap with us.
I am.
All right. You're welcome anytime on the show. Make yourself at home. It's great to have you. Thanks so much for being here, and everyone else. We're off next week because we'll be watching the Humber College event, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, recapping 4 events. It's going to be a great time. All right, everyone. Remember your gracious professionalism, and we will talk to everyone soon. Bye, folks.